You wouldn't believe what happened at the Special Warfare Center. This place, right? It's supposed to be where the best of the best train, the Navy's elite, the Sea Dogs. But sometimes the biggest fights aren't out on the water. They're right there in the chow hall, over a lousy paper rank and a dirty pair of boots. This is the story of how I, Lieutenant Jade Valdez, spent a week being the biggest joke on base, until one tiny tattoo on my arm absolutely silenced 50 of the Navy's toughest operators. Act 1, the setup and the scapegoat, my. Official file said I was a paper pusher, a procurement, officer fresh out of Annapolis, sent to Naval Base Coronado, or what I called the dog pound, to manage supply requisitions and organize training records. Just the most boring administrative track you could imagine. That was the whole point, of course, the perfect mask. I had a small, almost invisible scar on my jaw, a crisp regulation uniform, and a face that could hold zero expression, because every single move I made was being watched by the man who wanted me gone, Commander Marcus Thorne. Thorne was the head of training, a big barrel-chested guy, mid-40s, with a self-assured swagger that filled every room, and he absolutely hated my guts on sight. He didn't see an officer. He saw an affirmative action checklist, a bureaucratic hindrance, a soft target. The very first night, in the middle of a packed dining facility, he decided to make an example. "Lieutenant Valdez," he boomed, loud enough for 40 or 50 operators to freeze mid-bite. "On your knees, prove you belong." I didn't flinch. I just stood there for a beat, tray balanced, eyes fixed on his polished combat boots. The place went silent, right? Forks suspended halfway to mouths, and honestly, the shame of it was a physical weight. But I had a mission, so I did it. I put my tray down quietly, no slamming, no drama, pulled a napkin from my pocket, and knelt. I started wiping the dust from his boot leather. The room exploded in nervous, snickering laughter, and Thorne's grin widened like he'd just won the World Series. "That's more like it, Valdez," he sneered, shifting his foot to make me adjust. "Maybe now you'll understand how things work here. We don't need administrators. We need operators." I kept working, kept my head down, but inside I was running the count. 4 seconds in through the nose, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out. It's a technique I'd learned a long time ago, designed to drop your heart rate under high stress, and I knew only certain people recognized it. In the back corner, an old-timer, Senior Chief Miller, caught it. I could feel his eyes on me, trying to reconcile the paper-pushing lieutenant with the combat-tested calm of my breathing. That little flicker of confusion was my first data point. I finished, stood up, put the dirty napkin in the bin, and walked to the back corner to eat alone, as if absolutely nothing had happened. My hands were steady, my face was blank, but the observation was complete. Thorne ran a toxic, insecure command. My job over the next few days was pure tedium. Filing. Requisition forms, the mind-numbing stuff, but I was never really filing. I was mapping the base, memorizing shift changes, noting blind spots in the security cameras. I was watching how Thorne operated. The hostility peaked when he saw a chance to truly corner me. He ordered me to sign off on the 40-foot rope tower for the next day's evaluation. I walked up to it, did the standard inspection, just going through the motions. Right, but I knew instantly something was wrong. Fresh scratches on the anchor points, an almost invisible kink in the line 3/4 of the way up. It wasn't negligence. It was textbook sabotage. If a trainee, especially one carrying a full combat load, hit that kink, it was a catastrophic failure waiting to happen. "Problem, Lieutenant?" Thorne's voice dripped amusement. I looked him straight in the eye. "Rope's good, sir," I said evenly, "but Regulation 3272 requires an engineering sign-off on fixed training apparatus." "I'm not telling you your job, Commander. I'm citing liability. If someone falls, the investigation traces back to whoever authorized the climb." His smile died right there. He knew the risk. He waved me off, muttering about bureaucratic time-wasters. But the point was made. The supposed paper pusher knew the regulations better than the operator. I'd just saved his butt from a massive lawsuit, while also documenting his willingness to use compromised equipment. Act 2. The escalation and the containment. Thorne was furious that I'd thwarted his petty trap, so he decided to go nuclear. He filed a formal complaint, circulated a photo of me kneeling by his boot on the base group chat, captioned, "When admin tries to play soldier," and then he set his final trap. I was summoned to the security office. They claimed my credentials had been used to access classified training records. A clear setup, a security violation serious enough to end a career. I played the part. "That's impossible, sir. I was in my quarters." "Can anyone verify that, Lieutenant?" The security officer asked. "No, sir. I was alone." Thorne leaned against the wall, watching the whole thing with a satisfied smirk. I knew protesting was useless. I couldn't prove I was elsewhere without compromising my whole mission. So I submitted. "I understand, sir. I'll change my credentials and file the incident report immediately." My compliance stunned them, but it was the only way to let them think they were winning. The final hammer fell when Thorne ordered me to report to the motor pool. He claimed a random equipment inspection, specifically targeting me. When I arrived, he was there with his full inner circle, a proper little audience. "We've had reports of missing equipment, Lieutenant," he announced, walking a slow circle around me. "Tools, maintenance supplies, the kind of thing that walks off when people get lax. We'll start with the last vehicle you signed out." They walked to the bay. Thorne unlocked the truck, reached into the center console, and pulled out a small, specialized toolkit. "This," he announced, holding it up, "is restricted equipment. Theft of government property. You're on immediate administrative hold pending investigation." It was the perfect fabricated charge, a clean sweep. I didn't resist. I calmly removed my ID card and handed it over. My arrest, my confinement to quarters, was the final step in his victory dance and the final piece of my data collection. Hours later, the door to my room opened without warning. Thorne was alone, triumphant. "Lieutenant," he said, sitting down in the single chair, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "The theft charge is court-martial serious, but I'm not a monster. Resign now for personal reasons, and I make this all disappear. You walk away clean." It was the same manipulative play, just with higher stakes. I let the silence hang in the air, measuring his arrogance, watching him drink in the feeling of power. "I need time to think about it, sir," I finally said. He stood up to leave, paused at the door. "Tell me, Lieutenant, out of curiosity, what are you really doing here? Someone with your profile doesn't end up here by accident." I met his eyes. "Maybe I just don't like bullies, sir." Thorne's face hardened. He left. I waited 30 seconds, retrieved my secondary phone from its hiding spot inside a hollowed-out operations manual, and sent a single encrypted text. Phase 2 initiated. Ward returns in T2. Act 3. The reveal and the fallout 2 hours later, Thorne had me brought back to the motor pool. The arrogance was palpable now. He was celebrating. He showed me the security footage of me allegedly planting the toolkit, but I'd seen enough surveillance in my life to know it was edited. "You're spinning conspiracy theories, Valdez," he barked when I pointed out the inconsistent lighting and edited shadows. He moved close, invading my space, using his size to intimidate. "I'm done with this. Resign now, or I will make your life a living hell." I didn't flinch. I ran the 4-count breathing protocol again, just a hair more visibly this time. Thorne noticed. "Who taught you that breathing technique?" he snapped. That's not in the Annapolis handbook. This was it. The exact moment he'd asked the question that ended his career. "Same place you did, Commander," I replied, my voice calm, cold. "Survival, evasion, resistance, escape. Standard curriculum for denied territory operators." He grabbed my wrist, hard, trying to tear away the bandage and the medical tape I'd kept there all week. It was an aggressive move, an assault in front of his entire team. The tape ripped off, and there it was, coiled around my inner forearm, a black serpent wrapped around a silver blade. And beneath it, stenciled in stark military lettering, SD9. The motor pool went dead silent. Everyone recognized military ink, but no one recognized that designation. Suddenly, a voice came from the doorway. Senior Chief Miller, the old-timer who'd noticed my breathing, was standing there, tray in hand. "Serpent directive," he breathed, eyes wide. Thorne dropped my wrist like it was on fire. "That's not... Those units don't exist." "You're right, Commander," I said, rolling my sleeve higher, letting the detailed serpent extend toward my shoulder. Not in any official registry. Serpent Directive was a black-budget DoD operation. We answered to people whose names you don't have the clearance to know. Unit SD9, primary mission, high-value target elimination. Secondary mission, internal security for theater operations. I pulled out my backup phone, navigated to an encrypted file, and showed the room the image. Me, 3 years younger, in full combat gear. The tattoo clearly visible, sand and mountains in the background. The Kandahar Extraction 2019, Miller whispered, stepping into the room. That was you? Command just said someone with special clearance handled the tactical. Got us out with 0 casualties. They're still sealed, I confirmed. And since you're so interested in who I am, Commander, someone in Washington noticed a pattern. Training facilities where safety incidents got conveniently swept under the bureaucratic carpet. We're talking about 3 deaths in 3 years, all ruled accidental. Private Torres, Corporal Hayes, Sergeant Price. But when you look at the maintenance logs and the witness statements, the equipment was compromised. And the investigation was falsified. Thorne was pale, backing up against a vehicle. You have no authority here. I have the authority granted by the Inspector General's office, countersigned by the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Special Operations, I corrected, pulling up the official memorandum on my phone. My authority supersedes yours the moment I invoke it. And I've documented 15 safety violations, 4 instances of falsified maintenance logs, and, ironically, the deliberate attempt you made to frame a commissioned officer conducting a sanctioned investigation. I turned to his silent team. Your buddy, Private Torres. The rope he was using was flagged for replacement 2 weeks before he fell. The flag was removed by someone with administrative access. He died doing his duty, not because of negligence. The room shattered. Rodriguez, one of Thorne's men, dropped onto a crate, his head in his hands. Thorne finally cracked. I want a lawyer. That's your right, I acknowledged. Captain Ward and the Inspector General will arrive within the hour. Until then, you are relieved of command, and you will remain here, under the supervision of Senior Chief Miller. Miller, the man who'd seen my breathing that first night, stepped forward, blocking Thorne's path. Sir, with respect, he said to his former commander, you should stop talking. Later that afternoon, as military police escorted a defeated Thorne off base, Miller brought me a coffee. Going undercover always exacts a toll, he said. All that humiliation, was that just for the data? Partially, I replied, taking the coffee. But the boot cleaning? That wasn't just humiliation. It was evidence of a toxic command climate where bullying is tolerated. It was necessary to show what kind of system I was up against. He nodded slowly. They're calling it Directive SD10 now, aren't they? The new mission. Serpent Directive never really ended, I said, looking out at the sunset. It just evolved. Next time, I'll adapt. The next morning, I stood before the assembled formation, not as the joke, but as a special investigator. The base commander introduced me, detailing my real mission, a cold, hard punch of reality to everyone who'd snickered. Later, the young SEAL who'd escorted me to my quarters under arrest, a kid named Chen, came up to me, tears in his eyes. Ma'am, I'm so sorry, he stammered. When the commander ordered me to walk you back, I thought you were actually guilty. You followed orders, Chen, I replied gently. That's what you're trained to do. But sometimes, the hardest part of fixing a broken system is letting it break completely first, so everyone can see the cracks. I left the base that evening, ready for the next classified location, the next administrative file, the next mission that would never officially exist. But I kept thinking about that first night. Those men saw an administrator and laughed. They saw a rank and mocked it. But they completely missed the operator sitting right there in front of them, running the clock, counting the moments, just waiting for the arrogant commander to make the mistake that would destroy his life. So, let me ask you, if you were in the chow hall that first night, seeing the commander humiliate Lieutenant Valdez, would you have spoken up or stayed silent? And when the truth was revealed, who deserves the blame? The man who created the corrupt environment, or the men who silently let the toxic command culture continue for 3 years? Drop your take below and tell me, what is the true cost of silence?